What reason would make Holden shrink their most famous V8? This mystery lies in a single, almost invisible number, a threshold that separated glory from failure on the world's most unforgiving racetracks. The mighty Holden 5-litre V8 was forced to undergo a transformation, a shrinking that defied logic, that wasn't about fuel economy or emissions, yet it was necessary for its survival. This is a story of the muscle car built purely to cheat global race rules, and one that would go on to change Australian motorsport forever. To set the stage, let's go back to 1984 and begin with the VK Commodore. The Holden VK Commodore was produced from March 1984 to February 1986 and represented the penultimate model of the first generation Commodores, introducing a more modern, aggressive and sensible design. The VK series also introduced a more rationalised lineup with the base SL and the new executive models, which we'll return to later, targeting the fleet market. Then the Bellina, which replaced the SLX, and the new Calais, taking over as a top-tier luxury sedan from the previous SLE. Key exterior changes included the adaptation of plastic or polypropylene bumpers and a revamped glasshouse with a new rear quarter window. This created a 6-window design which departed from the previous 4-window layout, giving the impression of more size. The car featured a new 3-strip grille with updated rear lights, which spread across the whole width of the car's rear, split only by a connecting black panel. The standard dashboard incorporated a new square-dialed instrument cluster, but the top-tier Calais was exclusively equipped with the premium full digital instrument display. Engine options were the newly released 3.3-litre black straight 6, available with either carburettor, standard on most cars, or fuel injection, which used the Bosch LE Jedtronic multi-point fuel injection, which was optional. Due to complications concerning the fuel pump and its fitment into the VK, the fuel injection system's release was delayed until approximately 8 months after the VK's initial launch. The V8 lineup included the venerable 4.2-litre initially, but was quickly discontinued early in the VK's production run, effectively being replaced by the newer fuel-injected straight 6. There are also 2 versions of the 5-litre, one pushing 126 kilowatts and the other 177 kilowatts, a Brock version that would also go on to be replaced. There would also be a new kid on the block, but more of this later. Funnily enough, New Zealand received several unique VK variants, including the upmarket Commodore Royale and various models fitted with a smaller 1.9-litre 4-cylinder Starfire. It was also around this time that things were changing with the ATCC and at Bathurst, thanks to the FIA, or Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, or International Automobile Federation. The core problems stem from the new International Group A touring car regulations to be implemented by the FIA. In mid-1983, CAMS, or the Confederation of Australian Motorsport, announced a major shift. Australia would replace their locally developed Group C racing rules, in effect since 1973, with the new International Group A regs on January 1st, 1985. This meant the 1985 Australian racing season, which began on Sunday, February 10th, would operate under these new international rules. This new set of motorsport regulations applied to production-derived vehicles intended for competition in touring car and rally racing. Did you know that prior to this regulatory change, HDT Commodores spanning the VC through VK models were collectively known as the Big Bangers during the Group C era? This switch to the International Group A regulations in 1985 would prove to have a profound and initially difficult effect on Holden's touring car racing program, forcing them to fundamentally change the design, production and competitive strategy for their flagship car, the Commodore. To meet the new racing rules, manufacturers were required to produce and sell a specific quota of homologation specials. These road cars were pre-equipped with all the necessary racing components, including body kits and engine upgrades, with the production minimum set at 5,000 for the base model and 500 for the Evolution models. Another of the Group A's problematic rules imposed a weight penalty on engines over 5 litres. Therefore, the long-serving 308 or 5 litre or 5.044 litre to be precise would obviously exceed the 5 litre limit. This meant it would be classified qualified in the over 5000cc class, so incurring a much heavier minimum race weight of 1,400 kilograms, rendering the Commodores uncompetitive. The solution was to get the car classified in the more competitive 4001 to 5000cc class, which had a more favourable minimum race weight of 1,325 kilos. This meant that Holden and HDT needed to get a smaller engine, but where and how would they get the smaller engine? To achieve this, both Holden and HDT engineers worked on the problem, finally finding a wild and radical solution. The idea was simple yet effective. Their answer: de-stroke the standard 5 litre V8, so reducing its capacity. Holden engineers, in conjunction with HDT, took the standard 308 V8 and modified it by slightly reducing the piston stroke by 1mm from the standard 77.8mm to 76.8mm. Although Ray Borrett was credited with developing the 4.9 litre unit, he worked in close collaboration with HDT's Peter Brock and chief engineer Larry Perkins. This reduced its capacity to precisely 4.987 litres and would be known as the 4.9 litre or option A9L. This reduction successfully allowed Holden to homologate the car into the lighter and more competitive weight class. To aid performance, Holden would also have to focus heavily on aerodynamics, which led to the creation of a number of distinctive body adaptations and wheel styles. With the engineering work complete, the focus now shifted to the HDT Special Vehicles operation, led by Peter Brock, who would be responsible for creating the necessary low-volume, high-performance road cars for homologation purposes. But to find out how, let's just rewind for a minute back to 1979 and take a quick look at how HDT Special Vehicles operations came about. Back in 1979, and despite HDT's success at that time, Holden withdrew its factory support for the team, reasoning that with Ford's exit in 1978, competing solely against privateer Holden teams was pointless. Following Holden's decision to withdraw its factory support, the team was consequently put up for sale. This major change prompted John Shepherd to step down from his role as team boss. With this, Peter Brock urgently appealed to the dealer network for funding to save Holden's famous race team from imminent closure. Now, this is where Vin Keane steps in. As a sharp businessman within the Holden network, he argued that simply funding the race team would not yield dealers a sufficient return on their investment. This led to the idea of an HDT Special Vehicles operation, which provided a solution. Brock would modify V8 Commodores, and these enhanced vehicles would then be supplied directly to supporting dealers. The dealers could then sell these cars at a premium rate, generating sufficient profit to justify their continued funding for the race team. It was a simple, ingenious and mutually beneficial strategy. By doing this, Peter Brock, with the assistance of Vin Keane, managed to gain financial support from 54 Holden dealers across Australia. This support was secured by Brock's agreement to build and supply a special range of modified performance Commodores through them, so transitioning the operation into a true dealer team rather than a factory-backed squad. Keane also managed to secure the continued support of key sponsors, including Marlboro, who committed after Brock scored a dominant win at the 1980 ATCC opener in Tasmania, plus other sponsors like Castrol and Bridgestone. The first Brock Commodore prototype was a collaborative effort by Peter Brock, John Harvey and Vin Keane, and was developed in a service workshop at the United Motors Holden dealership in Mile End, South Australia. This partnership between Brock's HDT and Holden became unique and highly successful, resulting in some of Australia's most coveted high-performance road cars. Fast forwarding back to 1984, and in preparation for the switch in regulations, Peter Brock had begun designing a new model based on the Holden VK Commodore. He chose the executive model, which was aimed at the fleet market. Lacking luxury features like power windows, it was naturally lighter, making it an ideal candidate for racing homologation. You see, the V8 powered executive models provided HDT with a more robust starting platform and often had specific structural bracing or heavier duty components installed by Holden. Originally intended for the police pursuit vehicles, known as the Police Pack or BT1 option code. One source even mentions Brock showing the interior designer his chosen turquoise cloth in March 1984. The design and adaptation to the upcoming FIA regulations was well underway throughout late 1984 and early 1985. The production process started with Holden assembling the executive spec sedan bodies with V8 engine provisions at the Dandenong plant. These bodies were then shipped to Peter Brock's HDT Special Vehicles facility, where HDT performed a number of extensive mods, including installing a unique 4.9 litre or 304 cubic inch Group A engine, the specific Group A body kit and the heavy duty suspension plus custom interior. The road-going HDT VK SS Group A was produced in a mandatory run of 500 units, or slightly more, as we will find out later, and all would be finished in its distinctive Formula Blue colour. Although production officially began in March 1985, HDT initially planned to complete the run by June 1985 to meet the crucial August 1st racing deadline, but things wouldn't go their way. You see, while CAMS required 500 road-going versions to be built before the car could compete, the production schedule was unfortunately delayed significantly by hold-ups on essential imported parts. The 500 original Group A models were eventually completed by October, followed over the next couple of months by an additional 50 special editions, or should I say 48, known as the HDT, Commodore, SS, Group A, Group 3s. These follow-up cars featured a full Group 3 exterior and interior treatment, and which I'll be looking at shortly. As a direct consequence, with the deadline being missed, the SSVK Group A would now not be able to race until 1986, meaning HDT was forced to compete throughout the whole of the 1985 season using its older VKs. As the Australian Touring Car Championship and James Hardy 1000 at Bathurst adopted the FIA Group A regs in 1985, the field was now opened to both local and international competition. This instantaneously allowed powerful cars like the Jaguar XJS, which won that year, and the BMW 635 CSI, which finished second, to dominate the results, with another XJS and BMW 635 CSI finishing third and fourth respectively. The top Commodore, the Barry Jones number 41, took 10th spot. The performance gap with these cars was evident at the 1985 Bathurst 1000, where HDT driver John Harvey remarked that his personal road-going SS VK Group A was faster than the car he was attempting to race. The new car that would become known as the Blue Meanie would then go on to replace the Group 3 models as a HDT flagship model. Now, let's take a look at the car. As already discussed, the engine used was the newly created 4.9 litre or option A9L, an overhead valve V8 engine and painted in distinctive Holden red. The A9L utilised the same fundamental block as a standard L31 5 litre unit, but it featured the shorter stroke, unique crankshaft and strengthened internals to help achieve the crucial 4,987cc displacement required for international Group A racing rules. To maximise performance, Brock's modifications were extensive, beginning with special B-cast cylinder heads for improved flow, which were mated to a larger port-matched intake manifold and HM tubular headers. Internal enhancements included a double row timing chain and roller rockers, all working in conjunction with highly radical crane camshaft. This powerful setup was fueled by a meticulously tweaked Rochester 4-barrel downdraft carburetor, drawing air for its single HDT cold air intake. The compression ratio was 8.8 to 1, pushing 196 kilowatts and giving a 0 to 100 km per hour in 7.65 seconds and 0 to 400 meters in 15.6 seconds. Power was sent to the wheels via the good old M21 4-speed manual transmission, which was standard. However, HDT also fitted a 5-speed manual, the Getrag T5, as an option for an extra $2,850. This drove through a GU4 308/1 final drive with a G80 limited slip differential to the rear wheels. These cars also received the same Group 3 suspension kit but tuned to suit Group A racing requirements, using independent McPherson struts at the front and a live axle with trailing arms and panhard rod at the rear, which included Bilstein shocks and uprated springs. Stopping was achieved using 281mm vented discs at the front and paired with 281mm solid discs at the rear. The wheels used on the Blue Meanie were a 16x7" HDT aero or aero-directional alloy wheels. The wheels were manufactured with separate left and right side directional spokes, a design choice made specifically to promote airflow and cooling over the brakes. To further enhance their aerodynamic efficiency, the wheels included a large flat centre cap that completely covered the wheel centre. Peter Brock initially wanted the HDT's 16x7 aero rims to be white as a nod to earlier racing liveries, but he and Holden ultimately agreed that the Polaris silver colour would be better as standard. Despite the silver polish finish being standard, the white format was offered as an option, which many owners chose to replicate the colour commonly seen on touring cars. These wheels were shod with 225/50 VR16 Bridgestone Potenza tyres. For interest, VR in VR16 gives a speed rating of the tyre. These were rated for speeds over 210 km/h, which was appropriate given the car's top speed of around 215 km/h. These HDT aero wheels are now incredibly popular in the aftermarket scene, with the modern HDT Heritage Series Blue Meanies featuring much larger scaled up versions, often 19 or 20 inches, to fit contemporary brakes and tyres while still maintaining the unmistakable aero design. The interior of the Blue Meanie was upgraded from the executive and featured special high-performance seats sourced from the renowned German manufacturer Schiel. These were heavily bolstered bucket seats designed to hold the driver and front passenger firmly in place during spirited driving and cornering. Trimmed in a specific cloth often referred to as cerulean blue, they were in fact a combination of cerulean blue and a herringbone pattern tweed cloth, which gave the car's interior its distinctive bright 1980s look. Funnily enough, New Zealand got a sporty VK Commodore, the GTS, which also got the same cerulean blue interior as the Blue Meanie, but not with the Schiel seats. Also fitted were a Momo gear knob and a 350mm Momo Monte Carlo steering wheel, which was finished in black leather with thick anatomical grips. As a matter of interest, Momo was founded in 1964 by racer Gio Piero Moretti. The name Momo comes from the first two letters of his surname, Moretti, and his track of origin, Monza. As a performance car, it included a proper tachometer as part of its sports instrumentation package, but didn't receive the fully digital or vacuum fluorescent display dashboard that debuted on the Calais, as this was considered too problematic for racing. These cars also received the iconic Peter Brock stereo radio cassette, but with only 2 speakers. Being no frills, these cars had crank-up windows, although air conditioning was standard. All models could be identified as SS Group A's by their build plates on the glove box door, which showed the build number, i.e. 279, of a total of 500 built plus Group A. VK SS Group A models were all painted exclusively in a single shade of blue known as Formula Blue, which had a specific paint code 1B123. However, the story goes that when Peter Brock first saw the pre-production exterior colour, he remarked, "The race car blue doesn't quite match the interior, which is a greenish blue." Holden's styling boss, Phil Smood, pointed this out, but instead of accepting it, Brock decided to solve the problem himself. He took the original colour, added a tinter and invented a specific shade now known as Formula Blue. For your reference, a tinter is essentially a high concentrated pure pigment paste that is added to a base paint to create a specific colour or shade. Although the colour is incredibly similar to Mobil's Colour Blue, Mobil being the team's primary sponsor at that time, Formula Blue was Brock's own creation, not Mobil's standard blue. This is where the VK gets its name, the Blue Meanie. Blue because of the colour Formula Blue, and Meanie due to its more aggressive stance. So, Blue Meanie. This car also carried unique exterior badging. The front fenders carried the SS logo, plus Group A and Peter Brock signature. The SS logo was also placed solely on the front edge, passenger side of the hood, with the boot carrying the SS logo on the driver's side. In recognition of the Commodore's Bathurst wins, both rear fenders featured the winner's wreath, listing the years 82, 83 and 84, plus first. This motif surmounted the HDT logo and the Commodore V8 badging. The car was also distinguished by its large Group A front air dam and revised, more aerodynamic front grille. It was also fitted with a sharp one-piece Group A rear boot lid spoiler. This element was significantly larger than those on standard VK SS or Group 3 models, as its design was necessary to achieve the improved aerodynamics and downforce for Group A racing homologation. Each car received a HDT build plate located in the engine bay on the firewall in front of the passenger. This plate confirms the build number, in this case 2254, which is the car's sequential production number within HDT's entire history, the date 585 indicating the car was completed by HDT in May 1985, and finally the model GA standing for Group A, which specifically confirms that the vehicle is a genuine VK Commodore SS Group A or the Blue Meanie. A Blue Meanie can also be identified from its compliance plate from the following details: VK8VK19, which is the model code defining it as an executive, LV2 for the base 5 litre V8, GU4 for the 308/1 axle, plus M21 for the Aussie 4-speed, but most crucially the exclusive Formula paint code 1B123B, with B detailing the paint as solid. So with all these details, it confirms it was built by Holden as the base vehicle for the VK SS Group A homologation model. HDT vehicles were synonymous with Peter Brock, and his involvement gives these cars immense prestige. His personal car, which was build number 005, reflecting his signature 05 race number, sold at auction via Grays Online in May 2021. This sale achieved a remarkable price of $1,057,509 Australian dollars, setting a new record at the time for an Australian-made road car. Now that the Blue Meanie was finally homologated, it became available for racing from January the 1st, 1986, and would prove to be one of the fastest cars competing in Group A when it hit the tracks. The adoption of the Group A rules also meant that HDT was now also eligible to compete the Commodores worldwide. The VKSS Group A's first major success was a decisive first and second place finish at the Nissan Mobile 500 on the Wellington Street Circuit in New Zealand, driven by an historic pairing, the previously unthinkable team-up of racing rivals Peter Brock and his new co-driver Alan Moffat. The Pukakao 500, the second race of the New Zealand series, was held a week later. Unfortunately, the HDT car, driven by Peter Brock and Alan Moffat, retired from the event after 61 laps due to engine failure. The race was ultimately won by their teammates John Harvey and his new team engineer Neil Lowe, driving a sister Mobile Holden dealer team VK Commodore. As the HDT VKSS Group A could now compete internationally, HDT capitalised on this by sending two factory-backed cars overseas for Brock and Moffat to contest the 1986 FIA Touring Car Championship. Privateer Alan Grice and Graham Bailey also campaigned a Les Small prepared VK in Europe, successfully leading several races. This model saw action in some major European Championship rounds, including the gruelling Spa 24-hour race with Brock, Moffat and Harvey. While at Spa, Alan Grice suffered a broken seat. After HDT refused to provide a spare, he famously resolved the issue by loaning one from Tom Walkinshaw's unused TWR display car. Walkinshaw's team were running the Rover Vitesse in the ETCC. Grice drove the roadways VK Commodore Group A in several rounds of the ETCC, including the Hockenheim event. While at Hockenheim, Grice found himself up against the Volvo 240 Turbo with reigning European Touring Car champion Thomas Lindstrom and F1 driver Johnny Chiotto. Grice's highlight occurred while driving the Roadways Commodore. He set a new lap record at Hockenheim, a remarkable achievement for an Australian car in European racing. Back in Australia, the VK's greatest achievement was delivered at the James Hardy 1000 at Bathurst in 1986, where the car secured a dominant first and second place finish, with the victory victory going to privateer entry Alan Grice and Graham Bailey in the iconic number 2 Chickadee VK. They were followed by the Mobil sponsored number 3 car driven by John Harvey and Neil Lowe, with Alan Moffat and Peter Brock's 05 finishing 5th. VKs also took most of the following spots. Thanks to Group A, the field in 1986 was highly diverse, featuring entries from various classes including a large contingent of turbo cars alongside the more traditional V8s. Notable competitors during this season included the formidable Volvo 240 Turbo, Nissan Skyline DR30, Jaguar XJS, Ford Mustang and the BMW 635 CSI. While Holden's naturally aspirated V8 Commodores were competitive early in the Group A era, 1985 to 1987, the international field quickly evolved. The rules allowed for more powerful, lighter turbocharged engines like the Ford Sierra Cosworth RS500 and later with all-wheel drive technology like the Nissan Skyline GTR. It was now that the Commodore struggled to match the raw speed and sophisticated technology of its turbo rivals, leading to reduced success until another rule change in 1993, which would favour the domestic V8 formula or V8 supercars. However, the road-going homologation cars were somewhat different to the race-going siblings. While the road car was already a handful, the VK Commodore SS Group A race car, though visually similar to its road-going Blue Meanie sibling, was another level. Beneath the surface, this was an entirely different machine, designed exclusively for sustained maximum performance on the track. The most significant changes were centred on power and durability. The 4.9 litre V8 engine, although fundamentally retained for homologation, was pushed far beyond its street limits. It featured extremely high compression, a dry sump lubrication, heavily ported cylinder heads and a race spec exhaust, boosting output from the road car's 196 kilowatts to well over 300 kilowatts. The engine was paired with a specialised close ratio racing transmission, generally a Borg-Warner T5, designed for instantaneous shifts and durability under sustained high-speed use. To handle this massive power and the demands of circuit racing, the car's chassis and suspension were totally overhauled. The body was seam welded to vastly improve its structural rigidity, and the soft road-tuned Bilstein suspension was replaced with rock-hard adjustable racing components like rose joints and stiff anti-roll bars. Furthermore, the standard road brakes were swapped for massive ventilated race-spec discs and calipers to ensure consistent fade-free stopping power. The interior was stripped down to reduce weight while retaining all necessary components to adhere to regulations. This included installing front racing seats, a comprehensive roll cage and a fire suppression system to comply with safety standards. Beyond the original VK SS Group A, a number of other models have adopted the Blue Meanie nickname, so let's check them out. Another car worth mentioning was the Commodore VK Group A Group 3, or Group A3 as it became known, and is considered the most desirable of the versions. This was essentially the Group A engine and performance components fitted into the Group 3 body and trim specification, and again using the A9L 4.9 litre, including a 308:1 rear axle, enabling a top speed of up to 215 km per hour, but this time combined with the more refined Berliner platform and featuring a larger 90 litre fuel tank. It also used a 4-barrel Rochester carburettor and port-matched inlet manifold, plus HDT cold air induction with a chrome air cleaner lid. While the Group A3 was standard with the M21 4-speed transmission, it could also be optioned with a highly desirable T5 Getrag 5-speed manual transmission. Listed as before as a 2,850 option, with only 23 customers choosing to have the T5 fitted. The braking system utilised a power-boosted split-circuit hydraulic system, featuring 281mm vented front discs and 281mm solid rear discs with ducted cooling, virtually eliminating brake fade. The suspension upgrades included a 27mm diameter front roll bar. Standard wheels were the 16x7-inch HDT aero rims with 225x50x16 Pirelli P7 tyres, while optional were the 16x7 or 16x8-inch Momo style rims. Despite being based on a better appointed Berliner, the Group A3 received full instrumentation. The car initially omitted certain creature comforts such as power windows and mirrors, referred to as no electrics at the time, in order to maintain its dedicated performance focus. The Group A3 received tinted tail lights and could also be appointed with a distinctive rearward facing bonnet scoop. Its performance was 0 to 100 km per hour in 7 seconds, a top speed of 215 km per hour with a quarter mile roll time of 15.54 seconds. The interior boasted shield seats with padded inserts, the Momo steering wheel and gear knob, and glove box with UDT logo on it. 50 units were planned, but ultimately only 48 models were produced. Following Peter Brock's unfortunate split with Holden in 1987, the concept of a factory-endorsed special vehicles operation evolved into its successor, Holden Special Vehicles, which continues the legacy today. However, this brand has transformed to their current role of taking imported vehicles like US market Chevrolets and professionally converting them from left-hand to right-hand drive. The HDT brand itself was later taken over by Peter Champion in 2007, a year after Peter Brock's untimely death. Peter Champion's HDT will continue the Blue Meanie legacy based on later model Commodores like the VE and VF to replicate the famous car in both look and spirit. From 2007, Peter Champion's HDT will create many homages to the Blue Meanie. Here are just a few with some oddities thrown in, but this is by no means an exhaustive list. In October 2009, HDT launched their new generation Blue Meanie as a modern alternative to the HDT's original model. Unveiled by Bev Brock, this model, a tribute inspired by Peter Brock's famous 1985 VK Group A Commodore, kicked off HDT's Heritage Series revival. Based on the VE Commodore SSV, this car is finished in the exact Formula Blue paint of the original. It was visually styled to replicate the iconic VK Group A, featuring modern reproductions of the single slot grille, the Group A style rear wing, and the classic turbine style aero wheels, available in either polished silver or white. The front fenders carry the SS and Group A logos, positioned above the number 05, honouring Peter Brock's iconic and now retired racing number. Mechanically, it uses the 6-litre V8, which has been upgraded by HDT with a special camshaft, high performance exhaust and ECU tune, resulting in a claimed output of 350 kilowatts. Like the original, superior handling was achieved through high performance Bilstein coilover suspension. The interior was retrimmed with HDT embroidered leather seats and carbon fibre highlights. Optional features included a supercharger upgrade and a special 4-seat leather interior. For exclusivity, HDT strictly limited production to 250 units, with all cars featuring a unique identifying build plaque. For example, this specific car is number 50 of the 250 built, again displayed alongside the SS and Group A logos and above the main HDT badge. As of making this video, it appears that only 92 of these originally planned 250 cars have ever been produced. It would be interesting to know if this is correct or not, so if anyone out there can shine some more light on this, it would be greatly appreciated. Launched in 2013 to coincide with the VF Commodore's debut, the Ute was the first of the 30th anniversary specials, limited to just 30 units, one for each year. It featured the full complement of retro Group A styling, including the functional bonnet scoop and white aero wheels, all finished in perfect blue, RPO code 988J. As a new take on Formula Blue, Perfect Blue retains the original vibrant shade while utilising modern metallic flake technology and a durable clear coat system to gain a depth and sparkle that the solid Formula Blue did not possess. Performance came from a naturally aspirated 6-litre V8 and modified by HDT. The sedan was released in 2015 to mark the exact 30th anniversary, also restricted to 30 highly exclusive units. This model received the most significant power upgrade. The 6-litre V8 was fitted with an Eaton 4-lube supercharger, boosting output to a massive 475 kilowatts. Visually, it was a faithful replication of the VK Group A, complete with the aerodynamic grille and iconic aero white wheels. Then came the wagon variant, also limited to 30 units, which provided a unique blend of practicality and high performance heritage. It incorporated all the distinguishing visual features of the sedan and the Ute, including the perfect blue paint, aero wheels and Group A tribute styling, while utilising the sports wagon platform. Performance wise, the wagon used the 6-litre V8 with an HDT performance package, offering a claimed power output ranging from 270 kilowatts up to 350 kilowatts, depending on the specific tune requested by the customer. The VK Commodore Blue Meanie was an undisputed automotive icon whose DNA clearly lives on today, inspiring many other high performance variants that serve as true homages to its greatness. Production of the original Blue Meanie ran from March 1985 to February 1986, although 500 units were originally planned, but due to an apparent mix-up in orders, 502 units were actually built. Of these 502 units, around 25 went off to New Zealand, and this doesn't include include the 48 models that were kitted out as Group A Group 3 race specials. Production of Group A Commodores continued until the VN series in 1992. The Group A racing category itself was then discontinued in 1993 to make way for yet another change in regulations, ushering in the era of the V8 supercars. The VK Commodore SS Group A, universally known as the Blue Meanie, defined by its signature Formula Blue colour and developed by Brock to align with mobile sponsorship, with its low and aggressive stance, stands as one of the most significant and collectible Australian performance cars, often listed among the chosen ones, alongside legends like the Tirana GTR XU1, E49 Charger and the GTHO Falcons. It was the first model to carry the Group A designation for Holden, but its creation was born purely out of racing necessity under the new FIA regulations adopted in 1985. Faced with a mandatory weight penalty under the new Group A rules, Holden and HDT collaboratively de-stroked the standard 5 litre V8 to the new 4.9 litre or 4,987cc V8. This simple but clever engineering feat resulted in a 196 kilowatt V8 engine that gained its crucial competitive weight advantage, necessitating the production of 500 road-going homologation specials, with 502 actually going on to be built. The VK Commodore holds the unique distinction of winning the Bathurst 1000 under both the old Group C 1984 and the new Group A 1986 rules, and establishing its legacy with HDT. The VK Commodore SS Group A was more than just a car. It marked the beginning of a lineage that would go on to dominate both the Bathurst 1000 and the Australian Touring Car Championship.